It is a beautiful Wednesday morning, and thank you so much for watching Morning Rush, hanging out with us as you get ready to have a winning Wednesday. Now, because it is Wednesday, we are celebrating women in entertainment, women who are using their voices to make a difference, using their talents to make strides, whether it be in their personal capacities or for the good of the multitude. Now, today I am joined by a young woman who wears several hats, among them being an advocate for the girl child, but also being a musician and someone who is very passionate about all things women. I am talking to Petronella Nduru. Petronella, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Tell me a little bit about where Petronella comes from.
Okay, so Petronella, as you said, she wears many hats. I'm a girl child advocate, I'm a musician, and I've been doing music for the past, I think, since 2018. And besides that, I also have a podcast, and I just love to inspire people, definitely.
Growing up, what inspired you?
I think I was inspired by my family, my parents, my mom. She's one of the hardworking women I know, and I grew up as a single. She was a single mother. My father passed away when I was very young, so I've always looked up to her. So I think that has always been my drive to say, okay, I want to make it. If not for myself, I want to make it for her.
How close are you to your mom?
Very close.
Yeah.
We are very close. I'm the only child, so
so
yeah.
you are besties by
like we have no choice except to be besties.
I love that. I love that. Now, of course, you mentioned growing up with your mom as a single mom. What are some of the things that you saw your mom experiencing that you said, look, if I ever have a voice to change things, these are some of the issues I want to start tackling?
I think one of the things, I don't want to say things that I experienced, but I remember my mom telling me a story when I was growing up, and she was like, growing up, she was the firstborn of 6 children, and it was like 4 or 5 girls and a boy. And I remember her telling me that growing up in the rural areas, my grandfather was told, oh, you shouldn't send your child to school. Because obviously she's gonna get married and you're actually funding like your husband's family.
You're right.
Yeah, so those are, I think, growing up, and she was like, my grandfather didn't listen. She was like, I'm gonna send my girls to school. So my mom really had a good, she went to university, she had a degree, and I grew up, to be honest, when my father passed away when I was very young, like I've never lacked anything. She paid for my school fees, and when my grandfather also passed away, she took care, she was like now taking care of the family.
Right.
So think about it, if she didn't go to school, where would I be? I wouldn't be even here sitting with you.
Right.
And my family probably would be like,
would be struggling as well.
Still be struggling, but my grandfather didn't listen, and those are the things that really, move me to say, okay, someone had to take a stand, knowing what was coming even before it was there. So yeah.
I want to stay on the advocacy side of you before we move on to everything else. For a lot of people, some of these instincts towards advocacy, instincts towards protecting and promoting access to information, access to rights, starts off at a very early stage. For some people in school, sometimes for others it's a lot when they get a bit older. At what point did you say, look, I want to become a person who influences change in people's lives?
I'm just going to be honest with you, Candice. I think advocacy chose me. I didn't choose advocacy, but advocates chose me. Because I remember when I started I started with motivational events. I was just like, I want to motivate people. But I didn't know that what I was doing was actually advocacy. Because advocacy is just simply shifting what is inside a person, saying, you know this, but let me tell you this. You have to believe this. So from those events of just saying, I'm just inspiring people, I was then, from there, that's where I was selected by Youth Empowerment Trust. That's when I was selected by the Women Deliver, which is like a global organization. And I was just like, okay, I think this has always been my path. And yeah. So this actually happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's not even like 5, 10 years. So yeah, I can say that about myself.
Now, being chosen by these big organizations that you're talking about as someone they recognize as a voice that actually can be part of the push towards shifting mindsets, how did that feel for you? What did it do for you?
I think for me, it just proves that I'm doing a good job. Because sometimes we're like, okay, but then it's just like, okay, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You're doing, like, it's like a trophy where you're like, okay, you're doing a good job, well done. So basically, that's what it is from, that's what it means to me. And we're like, I'm on my path, I'm going the right direction, at least, yes.
How did you get into podcasting?
So podcasting, funny enough, I saw when he was starting, I think it was who started with a podcast. And I was like, this looks interesting. So one day I was sitting with this gentleman. I was trying to pitch my work to them, the advocacy work. And they were like, you have so many ideas. Why don't you just start a podcast? And I was like, nah.
It can't be me.
So funny enough, 2020, before even the COVID hit, I was like, let me just do this. Let me just start podcasting. And that's when I started the Hey You series podcast, where basically it mainly focuses on mental health. So yeah, people come and share their stories. I also share my stories as well there. So yes, that's...
So that's, I like how some of these things so far we've had things finding you and locating you, which is a great thing. How has putting together the Hey You series changed your life?
I think when I started, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Because I think people don't talk about like the emotional and everything. Content creation is a whole other part of I can say an experience. So for me, putting together the Hey You series has really stretched me, because you have to constantly come up with content, and you also have to constantly know, like, get all these stories from people. And I think not only did this, like, I'm learning a lot, and also I'm also getting to share my knowledge as well with the world, which is very good.
What has been your most, so far, one of those moments on your podcast that have had you like, okay, yeah, this is different. This is something that is intense.
Yes, I remember when I started in 2020, I was getting all these stories. I remember interviewing people. And then I didn't know, like, when you are now, because I like it when we go deep with people. I'm like, okay, so what? And then people just started opening up their deep and darkest. And just like, okay, I think, okay, all right. But then I think it is also that thing where you're just like, this is real, like, this is intense. People are now sharing, oh, this is what happened to me, this is what I've been through and stuff. So for me, it is that moment when people start opening up, when I'm just like, okay, I need to get it together. I need to be there for them, and also to be like, this is happening. You know, you shouldn't judge. You should be there always to understand that, okay, these things are happening. And yeah, even if it's not me, to have, like I always say, empathy, to be like, it's not, I've never walked your journey, but at least I can feel how it is to be in your shoes.
Right. Now let's look at your musical side. You also have a musical side. How's that going?
I think so far so good. It's not going as fast as I want it to be, but I am such a huge believer in patience and, like, being a Christian, you know, all things work together for good. And I always, like, joke around and say, I'm gonna be big. I'm gonna be big. Like, if I will make it. And I think that it's been quite a challenge, you know, in terms of finances and stuff like that. But I'm just, like, being patient to be like, I know where I want to go with my music, and it's gonna happen. It will happen.
I think you're very rare when you do, because you're talking about, I know that I need to be patient, and you're in a generation that is surrounded by impatience. How do you remind yourself that, look, it's a process and I'm going to get there, I just need to be patient?
Yeah, I think faith also like plays a huge role because I'm such a big Christian, and sometimes, you know, you get so anxious. You're just like, when is this gonna happen? I have these amazing ideas. When is this gonna happen? But for me, it's always like an issue of saying, you know, it's better to wait than to just produce. I'm such a big believer of go big or go home. Like, I need to always like release an up to standard thing. So I'm not just going to rush because I want it to come out. You know, just if I wait a little bit, maybe it might tend to be a little bit more, but if I wait a little bit, it will turn out great. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Petronella, thank you so much for sitting down with us this morning.